Imagine this. You are 18 years old. You just woke up one morning, and someone knocks on your door and says, "You are now the queen. You are in charge of the most powerful nation on earth." What would you do? Would you panic? Would you cry? Would you say, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong person"? Well, a young woman named Victoria didn't panic. She didn't cry. She sat down, picked up her pen, and got to work. And over the next 63 years, she would rule over approximately 450 million people. That is almost 1/4 of the entire world's population. This is the incredible story of Queen Victoria, how one woman changed the world forever. Our story begins on May 24th, 1819, in Kensington Palace, London, England. A little girl was born. Her name was Alexandrina Victoria, but everyone called her simply Victoria. Now, you might think, wow, being a princess must be amazing. Parties every day, beautiful dresses, a palace all to yourself. Well, not exactly. Victoria's childhood was actually quite strict and lonely. Her father, Prince Edward, died when she was only 8 months old, so she grew up without a father. Her mother and a man named Sir John Conroy created something historians call the Kensington system. This was a very controlling set of rules for how Victoria lived. She was never allowed to be alone. Never. Not even for 1 minute. Someone always had to hold her hand when she walked down the stairs. She was not allowed to meet other children her age. She slept in her mother's bedroom until she became queen. Imagine being a teenager and still sleeping in your mom's room. Yeah, that's a lot. But here is the thing. All of this made Victoria determined. She kept a private diary. She studied hard. Languages, music, history, drawing. She was preparing herself, even if she didn't know it yet. On June 20th, 1837, everything changed. Victoria was 18 years old. At 6 o'clock in the morning, she was woken up by 2 men, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain. They told her, "Your uncle, King William IV, has died. You are now the queen." Victoria wrote in her diary that day, "Since it has pleased Providence to place me in this station, I shall do my utmost to fulfill my duty towards my country." She was 18. Most 18-year-olds are thinking about what to eat for breakfast. Victoria was thinking about her duty to 26 million people. One of the very first things she did was incredible. She told her mother and John Conroy, the 2 people who had controlled her entire life, "You no longer have power over me." She moved her bed out of her mother's room. She asked for 1 hour every day, just for herself, completely alone. For the first time in her life, Victoria was free, and she was ready to be queen. Her coronation, the official ceremony where she was crowned queen, happened on June 28th, 1838. She wore a white satin dress and a crown of diamonds. The ceremony lasted 5 hours. 5 hours. Some of the older lords actually fell asleep during the ceremony. Victoria, however, did not fall asleep. She sat upright and dignified the entire time. A queen does not fall asleep at her own party. Now, being a young queen had one big challenge. Everyone wanted her to get married. Her advisors, her ministers, her family. Basically, the entire country was saying, "Your Majesty, you need a husband." And then, in 1839, something wonderful happened. Her cousin, a German prince named Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, came to visit. Yes, his name was literally Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Try saying that 3 times fast. Victoria saw Albert, and she was smitten. She wrote in her diary that he was extremely handsome, with a beautiful nose and a most delightful expression. And here's the fun part. Because Victoria was the queen, she had to propose to him, not the other way around. So she invited him to a private meeting and said she would be very happy if he would consent to marry her. Albert said yes. They were married in February of 1840. Victoria wore a white wedding dress, and this actually started a tradition. Before Victoria, most royal brides wore colorful or silver dresses. Victoria chose white, and now, almost 200 years later, white wedding dresses are everywhere. You can thank Queen Victoria for that. Together, Victoria and Albert had 9 children, and those children married into royal families all across Europe, Russia, Germany, Spain, Sweden, and more. This is why people called Victoria the grandmother of Europe. Now let's talk about the empire, because this is what made Victoria truly extraordinary. During Victoria's reign, Britain was the most powerful country in the world, and the British Empire, the countries and lands that Britain controlled, expanded enormously. By the end of her rule, Britain controlled about 1/4 of all the land on Earth. We're talking about countries across Africa, Asia, the Americas, and the Pacific. People said, the British Empire is so big, the sun never sets on it. Think about that. At any time of the day or night, somewhere in in the world, the sun was shining on British land. In 1876, Queen Victoria was given a new title by the British Parliament. She was officially declared the Empress of India. This made her not just a queen, but an empress, the most powerful title a ruler could have at that time. But the Victorian era was also a time of incredible change inside Britain. The Industrial Revolution was happening. Factories, railroads, steam engines, and new inventions were transforming everyday life. In 1837, when Victoria became queen, most people traveled by horse. By the time she died, there were cars, telephones, and even early movies. She witnessed and presided over one of the most dramatic transformations in human history. But life was not always easy for Victoria. In December of 1861, the love of her life, Prince Albert, died. He was only 42 years old. Victoria was devastated. She wore black mourning clothes for the rest of her life, 40 years. Every night, before she went to sleep, she had Albert's clothes laid out on his side of the bed, as if he were still there. She also kept a cast of his hand on her bedside table. Every single night. That's either the most romantic thing you've ever heard, or the most intense. Maybe both. The British people began calling her the Widow of Windsor. For years, she barely appeared in public. But eventually, she came back. Because Victoria was never the type to give up, Victoria continued to rule all the way into the 20th century. On January 22, 1901, at the age of 81, Queen Victoria died. She had been queen for 63 years and 7 months, the longest reign of any British monarch at that time. So what did she leave behind? She left behind a world that looked completely different from the one she was born into. She showed that a woman could lead a powerful nation, not just survive, but thrive. She helped shape the idea of a constitutional monarchy, where the king or queen works together with elected leaders, instead of having total power. And she gave the world a new standard for what a royal family looks like. Family values, a loving marriage, and a sense of duty above everything else. She also gave us white wedding dresses, the tradition of Christmas trees in the living room, and a very long list of great-great-great-grandchildren across Europe. A girl who was never allowed to be alone. A teenager who slept in her mother's room. An 18-year-old who woke up one morning and became the most powerful person on earth, and spent the next 6 decades proving to everyone exactly what she was capable of. Queen Victoria, one woman, half the world. And that is the amazing story of Queen Victoria. I hope you enjoyed learning about her today, and I hope your English got a little better too. Now here's a question for you. If you had become queen or king at 18, what's the very first thing you would have done? Write your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If you want more stories like this, click subscribe and hit that bell. New stories every week. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.